on the subject. However, it is clear to me if anyone else had ordered a witness to create a false record and cover up acts that are subject of a law enforcement investigation, that person would be facing criminal charges. I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
Director, the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be.
Charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him. Names like Halper, Downer, Mifsud, Thompson, meeting in Rome, London, all kinds of places. The FBI even sent a lady posing as somebody else, went by the name Azra Turk, even dispatched her to London to spy on Mr. Papadopoulos. In one of these meetings, Mr. Papadopoulos is talking to a foreign diplomat, and he tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. That diplomat then contacts the FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, 2016, they open the investigation based on that piece of information. Diplomat tells Papadopoulos, Russians have dirt, Papadopoulos tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary filing.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's a guy who told Papadopoulos. The mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times, and yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, I can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys too?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into. What's interesting, you can charge 13 Russians no one's ever heard of, no one's ever seen, no one's ever going to hear of them, no one's ever going to see them. You can charge them. You can charge all kinds of people who are around the president with false statements. But the guy who launches everything, the guy who puts this whole story in motion, you can't charge him. I think that's amazing.
I'm not certain I agree with your characterizations.
Well, I'm reading from your report. Mifsud told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. Now, here's the good news. Here's the good news. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action, is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Nipson was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Time of the gentleman has expired. In a moment, we will take a very brief 5-minute break. First, I ask everyone in the room to please remain seated and quiet while the witness exits the room. I also want to announce to those in the audience that you may not be guaranteed your seat if you leave the hearing room at this time.
And there we have it. After about the first hour and a half of Robert Mueller's testimony to the House Judiciary Committee, that's just about halfway through. They're going to take a quick 5-minute break. I want to start with Mary Bruce, our congressional correspondent up there on Capitol Hill. Mary, we saw two very different strategies at play there by the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats might have wanted to bring Robert Mueller's report to life. They basically did that by reading it and having him say yes or no, that's what I wrote. The Republicans raising questions about the entire approach of Robert Mueller.
Yeah, George, and these strategies were very clear straight out the gate. We saw the chairman, Gerald Nadler, his first line of questioning was to get Robert Mueller to say that no, his report did not exonerate the president. And very clearly, we saw Democrats trying to tick through those 10 incidents of possible obstruction, to get Mueller to detail them for the American people, again, to underscore that his report did not exonerate the president, as he so often has claimed. Republicans, on the flip side, are clearly trying to put to bed the questions about the issue of collusion, picking apart the language of the report to highlight that there was no criminal conspiracy, and then going through a series of questions trying to essentially discredit the investigation. George, both sides knew that Robert Mueller is known for giving these very brief, often one-word answers. They came prepared for that. They tried to take advantage of that. It felt like a hearing by rapid fire, often at a lot of points with Mueller just ticking through all of these different questions. The question now is whether it's resonating with the American people.
That is one of the big questions to David Muir, also at the Capitol. At times, it did appear that Robert Mueller was having trouble following the questioning.
It did appear that way, which is probably why he wanted his deputy chief of staff there right by his side. That request in the last week or so that made a lot of news in the last 24 hours, to have him sitting beside him to help him point directly to the page numbers in that report that were continually being cited by both Democrats and Republicans. You heard Robert Mueller repeatedly say very one-word answers pointing right back to the report, particularly on the Democratic side of the questioning when they were trying to press on those points that Mary just mentioned on the potential examples of obstruction of justice. Mueller repeatedly said, I turn back to the report, and then the Democrats would simply read from Mueller's report for him. There had been a lot of questions about whether or not we would hear Robert Mueller reading portions of that report, and it would appear, at least so far today, that lawmakers, in choosing to read it, are reading it for him. But again, to go back to those two key points that Mary mentioned, the questioning that said, did you totally exonerate the president? Mueller saying no on that. And then that tense back and forth a moment ago on the Democratic side about Don McGahn, the president's lawyer, who obviously was mentioned a multitude of times in the Mueller report, a series of back and forth questions on whether or not Don McGahn had been told to lie about that public narrative, and Mueller repeatedly pointing back to the Mueller report. Yeah, and that gets to a key question on the follow-on here. Dan Abrams, let me start with you right here. It does seem like the Democrats are trying to basically create kind of a written record in this hearing that would lay the predicate for going forward with impeachment proceedings. And Don McGahn now appears to be a key witness. You've had the president calling him a liar, Robert Mueller calling him a credible witness.
Yeah, you need to hear from Don McGahn now. That's the key. Because, look, from the Democratic perspective, to me so far, it's been a bit of a bust. I mean, they needed this to come to life. They needed to be able to tell that story you're talking about. And this hasn't felt like a story. And on the flip side of it, Robert Mueller has not been defending himself against allegations that there were 12+ angry people who were out to get Donald Trump on his team. He started by talking about the integrity of the team, but then when there are accusations being made, he's not defending them at all. He's not defending why they wrote Section 2. He's not defending the integrity. He's not even properly answering the question about the FBI job.
Let me take that to Chris Christie. That was a bit of a surprise to me as well. It does seem that Robert Mueller is very conscious one of the time he is taking in, not wanting to say one word more than he has to at any moment.
This is what I said to you before it all started. My experience with Bob Mueller, having worked with him professionally for 7 years, was that when we would get in a room with a group of people where you were having a collegial conversation, Bob Mueller was always the person who said the least and was always the most careful. And I think you're seeing that again this morning. I think also the Democrats have left a lot of opportunities on the table here, George. You know, Congressman Ratcliffe, I think, made some significant points about the fact that we as prosecutors don't exonerate people. We either indict or we don't indict.
Although the special counsel regulations do say that the special counsel is supposed to write a report about that, which is what he did.
Right, but the point, though, George, is that the Democrats then didn't follow up on that to say, did you intend for us to do this since you felt you could not? And I think that's the biggest mistake the Democrats have made so far.
It certainly seems to be right now the biggest unanswered question on the table. Is that what Robert Mueller intended? He didn't want to take the bait on Barr either. We'll see if he can answer it.
He can't answer it if they don't ask it.
Let's take it. I want to take it to John Carl also. You know, we have not heard from the president since the hearing began. John, do you have any more reporting on the White House reaction?
Well, we're told the president has been watching, and a person very close to the president who has spoken to him this morning tells us, quote, this is a 0 for the Democrats. So the president has not been tweeting. He has been watching, and they clearly think that the Democrats have not done what they intended to do here. And, George, this is not the moment that Democrats had been expecting. They expected this to be a dramatic culmination, hearing directly from the special counsel. And as you've seen, you've heard a lot of one-word answers, a lot of apparent confusion from Robert Mueller. Not the moment they hoped for. There was, though, George, a moment of clarity, I thought, in the beginning with the questioning from Jerry Nadler on the question of whether or not Mueller wanted to interview President Trump. We reported along the way that he tried very hard, and he was very clear in his questions Q&A with Nadler that effort went on throughout the investigation, and that he felt that an interview with the president was vital to the investigation, and he never got that interview. I found that especially interesting because the president told me directly on more than one occasion that he fully intended and was willing to be interviewed under oath by the special counsel. It obviously never happened.
Yeah, his team fought it every step of the way. Pierre Thomas, you've covered Robert Mueller a long time as well. You covered the Justice Department as well. We know that Robert Mueller was a reluctant witness today. He fought over the restrictions. He fought over the timing. He didn't want to appear. He said his testimony, his report is the testimony. And it did appear there were even some questions from Republicans raised how involved he was in the overall preparation of the report and the investigation itself.
That's right, George. Mueller is not a made-for-television person, and you're seeing that play out today. He's extremely, as Governor Christie has said, extremely careful in how he approaches these types of things. He's trying to stay within the report, but he's trying to defend the conclusions of the report by basically agreeing with the Democrats where he sees fit. And in terms of some of the attacks by the Republicans, he seems to be perfectly content to ignore them. But I think the thing that he's been most animated about is trying to make this point that what the Russians did in terms of attacking the election was sweeping and systematic.
And as we're talking, we just got a tweet from President Trump, Cecilia Vega. He's retweeting Chris Wallace of Fox News saying this has been a disaster for the Democrats. So you see the president is willing to weigh in right now at the halfway mark.
Yeah, and quarterbacking a little bit and watching, even though he said he would be watching a little bit. We'll remind our viewers the president has a very light schedule today. He's in Washington. He's got a pretty open, at least public schedule, so we expect him to be watching this. Look, we heard the preview attack lines coming out of the White House and from aides inside. They said that the Democrats want a do-over of the do-over of the do-over. And we're going to hear that throughout the course of the day from the White House. But, you know, we have to go back to, I think, Mueller's opening statement. He came out swinging in a way. He contradicted what the president has been saying all along, the crux of his argument that he was totally exonerated. And Mueller said, no. I mean, there may not be giant bombshells or revelations after that, but hearing the special counsel for the first time on the record come out with those words and say the president of the United States was not exonerated by this investigation is big news.
I did not reach the conclusions of no collusion or no obstruction, which is what the president had tweeted. That gets to the question, Kate Shaw, then, of one of the things the Republicans were trying to do, particularly Congressman Ratcliffe, is basically say that this is not a case that could be prosecuted. Robert Mueller concedes that. He says, I didn't even look at that. The question for the Democrats now is it a case that Robert Mueller intended for Congress to pursue during an impeachment proceeding? It seemed like they got to the edge of that questioning, didn't ask it.
Yeah, and the Democrats didn't really step in and sort of pick up those lines of questioning. So, Mueller sort of says, well, this is a unique situation in response to one of the questions, and it's unique because he didn't have available the option of actually indicting the president. And so, you know, with essentially leaving open the question, you know, then the next sort of natural line is, and so, you know, the report discusses other constitutional mechanisms for addressing presidential misconduct. Well, what are those mechanisms? And clearly, the report is contemplating or referring to impeachment. It's referenced in a footnote, but not in the body of the report. They need to ask, and I think that that's factually within the report. It's in a footnote, but it's there, so it stays within the contents of the report to say impeachment. Now, will he weigh in substantively on whether this is impeachable conduct? I doubt it, but I think that they should try.
Terry, we've seen, you know, a lot of hearings like this in the past. You know, obviously the Watergate hearings, the Iran-Contra hearings, and at the beginning of the Watergate hearings, quite partisan. They kind of shifted over time, but this one does seem remarkable. There doesn't seem to be anyone on either side who's going to move 1 inch from the party line.
That's right. So what you have is a storytelling competition. You've got this mess of facts that the country's kind of confused about, and the Democrats came in with this very difficult challenge: tell a new story to the American public about something they think they already know. And I don't see a game.
Well, a news story, even though it is the story contained inside the report. Gerald Nadler's back in the podium. Committee now, you see Gerald Nadler there with the ranking Republican member Congressman Collins of Georgia, as we wait for Robert Mueller to return back to the hearing room. About another hour and a half of questioning is expected. Christy, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but you have worked with Robert Mueller. What do you think his team is telling him right now?
I think his team is telling him, continue to do what you're doing. Take your time. And they're probably telling him to push back a little bit. I'm sure those folks are there, and they're a little disturbed, as I think we've been surprised by the fact that he hasn't pushed back as hard on the integrity of his investigation and of the people.
His own integrity, whether he was conflicted.
Right. And I think the other thing here that the Democrats have to do something different in the next hour and a half, because they're not moving the ball politically, George. This is an impeachment question now, and I don't think Nancy Pelosi's watching this saying, okay, let's do impeachment.
They need to listen to the answers, and they need to
they don't do that
They're
ever.
Not listening to the answers.
They don't ever.
Gentleman from Louisiana,
Ready
Mr.
for
Richmond.
round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mueller, Congressman Deutsch addressed Trump's request to McGahn to fire you. Representative Bass talked about the president's request of McGahn to deny the fact that the president made that request. So I want to pick up where they left off, and I want to pick up with the president's personal lawyer. In fact, there was evidence that the president's personal lawyer was alarmed at the prospect of the president meeting with Mr. McGahn to discuss Mr. McGahn's refusal to deny the New York Times report about the president trying to fire you, correct?
Correct.
In fact, the president's counsel was so alarmed by the prospect of the president's meeting with McGahn that he called Mr. McGahn's counsel and said that McGahn could not resign no matter what happened in the Oval Office that day, correct?
Correct.
So it's accurate to say that the president knew that he was asking McGahn to deny facts that McGahn, quote, had repeatedly said were accurate, unquote. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Your investigation also found, quote, by the time of the Oval Office meeting with the president was aware, one, that McGahn did not think the story was false, two, did not want to issue a statement or create a written record denying facts that McGahn believed to be true. The president nevertheless persisted and asked McGahn to repudiate facts that McGahn had repeatedly said were accurate. Isn't that correct?
Generally true.
I believe that's on page 119. Thank you. In other words, the president was trying to force McGahn to say something that McGahn did not believe to be true.
That's accurate.
I want to reference you to a slide, and it's on page 120. And it says, substantial evidence indicates that in repeatedly urging McGahn to dispute that he was ordered to have the special counsel terminated, the president acted for the purpose of influencing McGahn's account in order to deflect or prevent further scrutiny of the president's conduct towards the investigation.
It's accurate.
Can you explain what you meant there?
I'm just going to believe it and as it appears in the report.
So it's fair to say the president tried to protect himself by asking staff to falsify records relevant to an ongoing investigation.
I would say that's generally a summary.
Would you say that that action, the president tried to hamper the investigation by asking staff to falsify records relevant to your investigation?
I'm just going to refer you to the report, if I could, for review of that episode.
Thank you. Also, the president's attempt to get McGahn to create a false written record were related to Mr. Trump's concerns about your obstruction of justice inquiry, correct?
I believe that to be true.
In fact, at that same Oval Office meeting, did the president also ask McGahn why he had told, quote, why he had told special counsel's office investigators that the president told him to have you removed, unquote?
And what was the question, sir, if I might?
Let me go to the next one. The president, quote, criticized McGahn for telling your office about the June 17, 2017 events when he told McGahn to have you removed, correct?
Correct.
In other words, the president was criticizing his White House counsel for telling law enforcement officials what he believed to be the truth.
I again go back to the text of the report.
Well, let me go a little bit further. Would it have been a crime if Mr. McGahn had lied to you about the president ordering him to fire you?
I don't want to speculate.
Okay. Is it true that you charged multiple people associated with the president for lying to you during your investigation?
That is accurate.
The president also complained that his staff were taking notes during the meeting about firing McGahn. Is that correct?
That's what the report says. Yeah, the report.
But in fact, it's completely appropriate for the president's staff, especially his counsels, to take notes during a meeting, correct?
Well, I rely on the wording of the report.
Well, thank you, Director Mueller, for your investigation into whether the president attempted to obstruct justice by ordering his White House counsel, Don McGahn, to lie to protect the president and then to create a false record about it. It is clear that any other person who engaged in such conduct would be charged with a crime. We will continue our investigation and we will hold the president accountable because no one is above the law.
Thank
you. The gentleman from Florida.
Director Mueller, can you state with confidence that the Steele dossier was not part of Russia's disinformation campaign?
No, as I said in my opening statement, that part of the building of the case predated me, and by at least 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Manafort's alleged crimes regarding tax evasion predated you. You had no problem charging them. And matter of fact, this Steele dossier predated the Attorney General, and he didn't have any problem answering the question. When Senator Cornyn asked the Attorney General the exact question I asked you, Director, the Attorney General said, and I'm quoting, "No, I can't state that with confidence, and that's one of the areas I'm reviewing. I'm concerned about it, and I don't think it's entirely speculative. Now, if something is not entirely speculative, then it must have some factual basis, but you identify no factual basis regarding the dossier or the possibility that it was part of the Russia disinformation campaign. Now, Christopher Steele's reporting is referenced in your report. Steele reported to the FBI that senior Russian foreign ministry figures, along with other Russians, told him that there was, and I'm quoting from the Steele dossier, extensive evidence of conspiracy between the Trump campaign team and the Kremlin. So here's my question. Did Russians really tell that to Christopher Steele, or did he just make it all up and was he lying to the FBI?
Let me back up a second, if I could, and say, as I said earlier, with regard to Steele, that's beyond my purview.
No, it is exactly your purview, Director Mueller, and here's why. Only one of two things is possible, right? Either Steele made this whole thing up and there were never any Russians telling him of this vast criminal conspiracy that you didn't find, or Russians lied to Steele. Now, if Russians were lying to Steele to undermine our confidence in our duly elected president, that would seem to be precisely your purview, because you stated in your opening that the organizing principle was to fully and thoroughly investigate Russia's interference. But you weren't interested in whether or not Russians were interfering through Christopher Steele. And if Steele was lying, then you should have charged him with lying like you charged a variety of other people, but you say nothing about this in your report.
Well, sir.
Meanwhile, Director, you're quite loquacious on other topics. You write 3,500 words about the June 9 meeting between the Trump campaign and Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya. You write on page 103 of your report that the president's legal team suggested, and I'm quoting from your report, that the meeting might have been a setup by individuals working with the firm that produced the Steele reporting. So I'm going to ask you a very easy question, Director Mueller. On the week of June 9, who did Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya meet with more frequently? The Trump campaign or Glenn Simpson, who was functionally acting as an operative for the Democratic National Committee?
Well, what I think is missing here is the fact that this is under investigation elsewhere in the Justice Department. And if I can finish, sir, and consequently, it's not within my purview. Department of Justice and FBI should be responsive to questions on this particular issue.
It is absurd to suggest that a operative for the Democrats was meeting with this Russian lawyer the day before and the day after the Trump Tower meeting, and yet that's not something you referenced. Now, Glenn Simpson testified under oath. He had dinner with Veselnitskaya the day before and the day after this meeting with the Trump team. Do you have any basis, as you sit here today, to believe that Steele was lying?
As I said before, and I'll say again, it's not my purview. Others are investigating what you
So it's not your purview to look into whether or not Steele's lying. It's not your purview to look into whether or not anti-Trump Russians are lying to Steele. And it's not your purview to look at whether or not Glenn Simpson was meeting with the Russians the day before and the day after you write 3,500 words about the Trump campaign meeting. So I'm wondering how these decisions are guided. I look at the Inspector General's report. I'm citing from page 404 of the Inspector General's report. It states, Page stated, Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right. Strzok replied, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Also in the Inspector General's report, there's someone identified as attorney number 2. Attorney number 2, this is page 419, replied, hell no, and then added, viva la resistance. Attorney number 2 in the Inspector General's report and Strzok both worked on your team, didn't they?
Pardon me, can you ask?
They both worked on your team, didn't they?
I know, I heard Strzok. Who else were you talking about?
Attorney number 2 identified in the Inspector General's report.
Okay. And the question was?
Did he work for you? The guy who said viva la resistance.
Peter Strzok worked for me for a period of time, yes.
Yeah, but so did the other guy that said viva la resistance. And here's what I'm kind of noticing, Director Mueller. When people associated with Trump lied, you threw the book at him. When Christopher Steele lied, nothing. And so it seems to be that when Glenn Simpson met with Russians, nothing. When the Trump campaign met with Russians, 3,500 words. And maybe the reason why there are this discrepancies in what you focused on is because the team was so biased.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Pledged to stop
Mr.
Trump.
Jeffries of New York is recognized.
Mr. Mueller, obstruction of justice is a serious crime that strikes at the core of an investigator's effort to find the truth, correct?
Correct.
The crime of obstruction of justice has 3 elements, true?
True.
The first element is an obstructive act, correct?
Correct.
An obstructive act could include taking an action that would delay or interfere with an ongoing investigation as set forth in Volume 2, page 87 and 88 of your report, true?
I'm sorry, could you again repeat the question?
An obstructive act could include taking an action that would delay or interfere with an ongoing investigation.
That's true.
Your investigation found evidence that President Trump took steps to terminate the special counsel, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Mueller, does ordering the termination of the head of a criminal investigation constitute an obstructive act?
That would be. Let
me refer you
to the report.
Let me refer you to page 87 and 88 of Volume 2, where you conclude the attempt to remove the special counsel would qualify as an obstructive act if it would naturally obstruct the investigation and any grand jury proceedings that might flow from the inquiry, correct?
Yes, I've got that now. Thank you.
Thank you. The second element of obstruction of justice is the presence of an obstructive act in connection with an official proceeding. True?
True.
Does the special counsel's criminal investigation into the potential wrongdoing of Donald Trump constitute an official proceeding?
And that's an area which I cannot get into.
Okay. President Trump tweeted on June 16th, 2017, quote, "I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. Witch hunt." The June 16th tweet just read was cited on page 89 in Volume 2, constitutes a public acknowledgement by President Trump that he was under criminal investigation, correct?
I think generally correct.
One day later, on Saturday.
Now, from KITV4 Island News, this is Good Morning Hawaii.
Coming up on Good Morning Hawaii, after facing criticism over his handling of the situation on Mauna Kea, the governor finally visits with protectors on the ground more than a week after demonstrations against the TMT started. Plus, the deadly trend on the Valley Isle, why officers say Maui is on pace to see a record number of DUI crashes and what's being done to stop it. And one of Oahu's most popular hiking spots in need of some big repairs. Details on the new $1 million plan to revamp Coco Crater Stairs. Good morning, Hawaii. Thanks for waking up with us at 4:30 this morning. I'm Tom George. Maleko has the morning off. Certainly a lot to get to this morning, including we're continuing to cover the Mueller testimony as well. But before we get to those top stories, want to check back on weather and traffic. Good morning, Tasia. How's it going?
Good morning, Tom. Definitely loving these trade winds that will continue to build up throughout today, and it's here for a long stretch. Taking a look at our forecast, we are going to see winds today about 15 to 25 miles per hour, blowing out a lot of that instability that we did have just circulating the state around Kauai. We are seeing double digits with our winds for Lihue and Kaneohe, and it will help us with our temperatures today. Already feeling 80 for Honolulu as well as Lihue. Now our forecast of highs up to 92 for Kahului, so definitely going to be a hot day. Mostly sunny skies are expected from Oahu throughout Hawaii Island. Then for our Kauai County, we're still dealing with some instability due to that disturbance. So right now, some morning showers, partly cloudy conditions by the afternoon and pockets of sunshine rolling on in. We're starting off with our trade showers focused on the Ko'olaus this morning over Oahu, over Hana District for Maui County, Hawaii Island, isolated cloud coverage by the afternoon. 3 to 5 for the east, 2 to 4 for the south, and today's daytime high is 86 to 91. Now here's a look at your traffic. No major accidents or stalls, but we do have some road closures specifically for today in Nanakuli. 8:30 to 2:30, Hawaiian Electric will be replacing utility poles in the right Makaha-bound lane from Princess Kahanu Avenue through Lualei Place. So that's right near Hakimu Road, so just a heads up there. Also, Waipahu Home Depot Road, as well as our Aniani Place. We did have a water main break there a couple days ago, blocking the eastbound lanes. That has just been cleared, so definitely you can utilize as an alternate this morning. That's a look at your weather and traffic. Tom, to you.
Well, after a week of declaring an emergency proclamation on Mauna Kea, Governor David Ige finally set foot on Mauna Kea. For the first time ever, he referred to demonstrators as protectors of the mountain rather than protesters. And as KITV4's Eliza Larson reports, Ige also made Big Island Mayor Harry Kim the point man to lead the state and the county.
Governor David Ige hadn't been to the base of Mauna Kea to visit with the dozens of people who call themselves the protectors until tonight. Just after 5:30 p.m., Governor Ige, as well as Mayor Harry Kim from Hawaii County, arrived on the scene and were greeted with aloha.
Thank you for welcoming me here.
His visit was short. He talked with some of the kupuna, met with some of the leaders, and then was entertained with hula during protocol hours, and then had to leave.
I'm really happy that he did come, and he came right at the absolutely most appropriate moment.
But he did say a few words about why he came up here.
Thought it would be good to be here and visit and be able to talk to people.
Governor Ige essentially handed over responsibility to Hawaii County Mayor Harry Kim. Kim will now have to coordinate both the county and state efforts to continue the TMT project.
There are many activities that are required to be here, and it does require someone to be on island.
I told him yes, I will do the best I can.
In a way, I feel comfortable because we know him and he knows us.
How that will pan out, we'll have to wait and see. Reporting from Mauna Kea, Eliza Larson, KITV4, Island News.
Thanks, Eliza. And a circuit court judge in Hilo denied a request for a temporary restraining order to stop construction of the 30-meter telescope. Many of the opponents of the telescope packed the courtroom yesterday morning. Based on a state plan approved in 1977, they argued that TMT required a bond with the Board of Natural Resources equal to the total cost to build. TMT stated, though, that there's limited time during the year for construction before severe cold weather hits in the winter. It also said it's taking a financial hit because of the ongoing protests, but Mauna Kea still remains their top site of choice. And Kumuhula Paul Neves was granted a temporary stay or suspension of the governor's emergency proclamation, but it only applies to him. Neves is allowed up to the summit of Mauna Kea for cultural and religious practices, but there are restrictions. He's only allowed to travel during daylight, and he cannot block a convoy driving up Mauna Kea Access Road. There were no arrests on Tuesday, but the state says it arrested 38 people last week, not 34 as was first reported. It also released a list of names such as cultural expert Puolani Kanahele and longtime activist Walter Ritty. For the full list of names, you can head to our website at KITV.com. The Department of Land and Natural Resources reports there's still about 1,000 people on the mountain right now. Paramedics were called to Pu'uhonua o Puhuluhulu, or the Safe Zone Base Camp, on Monday night to treat a 21-year-old man for altitude sickness. He was checked out and left the scene on his own. Now, for the latest on the tension over TMT, be sure and stay with us on air and online. Again, there's also a special section dedicated to all of our Mauna Kea coverage. That's on our website as well, KITV.com. Well, still ahead on Good Morning Hawaii Early Edition as tensions flare over a controversial plan for a playground at Ala Moana Regional Park, as questions remain over how it would impact the environment.
Four years ago, construction was delayed by protest. Now, hundreds prepared to protest the revival of the 30-meter telescope to preserve the importance of Mauna Kea.
I don't want to take our most sacred mountain.
National Guard, police, and prosecutors are prepared if opposition gets out of hand. KITV4 Island News is live on the scene.
Continuing breaking news coverage on KITV4 Island News.
This week, save big on what your child needs for the new school year. Staples, back to school and beyond.
There's power in working together. So let's rise up and choose to see our similarities. Let's be bold and appreciate the things that make us unique. Let's use our voices to put an end to bullying and cyberbullying forever. And on Monday, October 7th, let's all stand up for World Day of Bullying Prevention by rocking a blue shirt. Together, we can make bullying a thing of the past. Get your blue shirt at stompoutbullying.org.
Catch Island Sports with Brandy Higa, weeknights at 6 and 10 on KITV4.
Up for anything? Nissan is. And Nissan SUVs have advanced tech to help guide you to the perfect spot. stay connected, and take any trail. Nissan SUVs, up for whatever you are. Get a total possible finance savings of $63.28 on the 2019 Nissan Murano.
Time now 4:38 on this Wednesday. Last week, Tuesday, we did have that full moon. That is the reason why an influx of box jellyfish is making its way on in. So yesterday was the beginning. Today, higher probability of those jellyfish again for those south and east facing shores, but it is widespread across the state. So definitely look for warning signs or check with your lifeguard. Your surf for today over on the east, 3 to 5, 2 to 4 for the south. We've got high tide just around 11 o'clock this morning, just a bit over a foot, and a low tide around 4:17 this evening. So flat to 2 for the north, 1 to 3 for the west. We still have that small craft advisory in place in Maui County throughout Hawaii Island, and we still have that disturbance west of the state. So we are going to get partly cloudy conditions for our Kauai County today. That will continue, but take a look at your hourly forecast. Mostly sunny skies will continue, especially for your smaller islands in the middle, and for our Hawaii Island, some isolated cloud coverage. Now here's a look at your traffic. In Waianae, a lot of lane closures today for your Wednesday, so definitely you want to add some extra commute time. Lane closures on Farrington Highway southbound direction near Kaena Point. This is for storm draining cleaning, 8:30 to 2:30, so just a heads up for some congestion in that area. Other than that, no major accidents or stalls, just slow going traffic making your way out of Nanakuli. And again, we do have that water main break that has been repaired in Waipahu at Waipahu Depot Road. So that's right before Uni. That's all clear for today. You can definitely keep that in mind for your alternate. Not much needed at the moment. 67 minutes from Waianae through town. Tom.
All right, thanks, Tasia. Well, a 37-year-old man is in critical condition after diving into waters off Kayaka Beach Park on Oahu's North Shore. Around 12:30 Tuesday afternoon, friends noticed that he was underwater and unresponsive. The man's friends brought him to shore and performed CPR until paramedics were able to arrive. Well, Maui police are worried that there could be a record number of traffic fatalities this year. As KITV4's Moani Keala Navarro explains, officers say driving under the influence is a big problem on the Valley Isle, and that both alcohol and drugs played a factor in more than half of this year's deaths on the roads.
Maui residents are in mourning after a suspected drunk driver slammed into a vehicle Sunday carrying a mother and son. Both were killed.
She died being a mom, doing the same thing every other mother does every day, going to pick up her kids.
According to Maui police, the fatal crash brings the death toll on the Valley Isle's roads to 14 so far this year. That's compared to 18 in all of last year. Police say with 5 more months left in the year, the island could come close or surpass one of Maui's deadliest years on the road.
To be honest, my investigators who do these crashes, they're mad. They're mad about this repeated stuff. We're tired of seeing it.
Police say alcohol or drugs played a factor in more than 50% of this year's crashes alone. So far, the department set up 73 DUI checkpoints on island this year. Efforts are underway to continue random screenings. But police say they need the public's kokua, asking people to look out for erratic drivers and help loved ones make better choices.
They weren't drinking alone. They're not hiding in a corner drinking and then deciding to go drive. They're out with somebody else who could have taken the keys from them.
Moani Keala Navarro, KITV4 Island News.
Yeah, big problem. Thanks, Moani. And Maui police say the truck driver involved in Sunday's deadly crash was flown to Oahu for life-saving treatment. An investigation is still underway. Well, tensions flared at a Honolulu City Council committee meeting yesterday as council members questioned why the city was so adamant about building a playground at Ala Moana Regional Park. After hearing testimony, the committee voted to pass a resolution calling for a third environmental impact statement. The council believes that the previous assessments were flawed and that they didn't take into account rising sea levels or the impact of taking away green space in order to build that playground. But the city's director of the Department of Design and Construction disagrees.
The amount of information we've gathered on this project, or these sets of projects, this master plan, has been way more than we normally would. So I don't see where going out with a third draft EIS is going to help us get any more information that we don't already have.
Now that resolution will be heard by the full council at their August 7th meeting at Kapolei Hale. And the city and county of Honolulu plan to spend $1 million to figure out long-term repairs for the Cocoa Crater stairs. According to our partners over at the Civil Beat, $100,000 will go towards immediate fixes. The popular hiking path is made up of stairs made of railroad ties, many of which right now are missing, and the trail has also been eroded. Now, some ideas include creating more parking for hikers and building bulb outs for people to actually stop along the hike. Well, Howard Hughes wants to expand Victoria Ward Park to create more green space in Ward Village. As part of that proposal, the company also wants to consolidate pre-approved plans to build 2 new towers into just 1 tower. That tower would be called Victoria Place, and it would have 350 units. Well, still ahead on Good Morning Hawaii Early Edition. After surviving R. Kelly, Lifetime now taking aim at multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein, the new docuseries dealing with the assault allegations against him. We'll be right back.
For 50 years, Cracker Barrel has been cooking home-style favorites to perfection. We thought we'd celebrate by making our golden anniversary extra golden. Introducing new, crispy, juicy Southern Fried Chicken. Now at Cracker Barrel.
Most things in life should be easy. And the best things in life come free. And for everything else, it's about finding the right financial provider, one that cares for your needs. Pearl Hawaii Federal Credit Union. Upgrade you.
When it comes to affordable home furnishing, Ross, hands down, has the best deals on the island. Everything you're looking for all in one convenient location. From living room, dining furniture, to bedroom sets, including remanufactured green beds. Giving you the feel of nationally recognized brands at a fraction of the cost. So much variety of prices too low to ignore. Ross Appliance and Furniture will save you hundreds, guaranteed.
Looking for better family health, wellness, and savings? HawaiiSavingsClub.com offers daily deals on Johnson & Johnson products. Don't get stuck paying full price and don't get stuck in traffic. Visit KITV.com before you get on the road. Catch up on today's top headlines with KITV4's Brenton Awad, 5, 6, and 10.
All of us want to have that youthful, spunkful energy that we used to. The gains wave at the activation clinic, they use sound waves to promote tissue growth. I kind of like that it's just pain-free and I didn't have to pop any prescription medicine pills, and it was a very fast procedure.
I noticed a significant improvement in my performance in bed. My wife said, wow. It definitely makes me a happier person, I would say, overall.
Reclaim your sexual confidence. Call us today for a private consultation.
This is Good Morning Hawaii.
446 and a rare pair of Nikes have knocked a world record to the moon.
Yeah, the auction house Sotheby's says these Nike moon shoes you see there broke the world auction record for a pair of sneakers on Tuesday. A collector bought the shoes for $437,500. Wow. Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman designed the waffle-soled running shoes for the 1972 Olympic trials and created the sole by melting rubber on his wife's waffle iron. That's how you got that pattern there, I guess. Only 12 pairs of the shoe were ever made, and this pair is the only known set in unworn condition.
I'm good with the $10 shoes from Walmart.
There you go.
Yeah. And check this out. Some scientists think the Milky Way swallowed a smaller galaxy about 10 billion years ago in order to get its current size. Right now, they're piecing together measurements to figure out how the galaxy formed. Dwarf galaxies contained about 100 million to several billion stars. The Milky Way has between 200 and 400 billion stars.
The more you know. I mean, no wonder everybody's trying to storm Area 51 in Vegas right now. We need answers.
I can't believe that. Well, we got to talk about that later, too. Well, beautiful footage there. Also, beautiful island pics being sent in. Mahalo, Steve, for this beautiful sunrise yesterday. That was pretty much the bright side of looking at the cloud coverage that we did have. Beautiful sunrise and sunset photos being sent in, so always share those with us. You can tag us right on your social media handles. Today, another day with beautiful high clouds, especially for Kauai County, with that disturbance still sticking around. Spotty showers for the morning. Elsewhere, we're dealing with those trade showers focused on windward and Mauka areas. But as you can see, most of the cloud coverage toward the west of the state, so very beautiful making your way in from Oahu throughout our Hawaii island. Now, Kauai will start off with those morning showers and partly cloudy conditions throughout the day. Pockets of sunshine will be more so for your afternoon. Oahu temperatures up to 90 is what we're expecting over in the leeward coast. coast, 85 for your central areas. And later tonight, very clear, just those typical windward showers. Later this evening, Maui County a bit breezier, but expecting up to 92 degrees once again for Kahului. Hawaii Island will also be sunny with some afternoon cloud coverage for our Kailua Kona. Surf for the east 3 to 5. Again, box jellyfish today through Saturday. Your Senate forecast showing breezy and sunny conditions for the weekend. Here's a look outside on the roads. If you are heading to the airport today, we do have alternating lane closures continuing from the H1 freeway in the westbound direction, 8:30 to 1. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you're heading to the airport. No major accidents or stalls reported within the last 2 hours, so we are getting off to a pretty good start for your Wednesday morning. Clear conditions as you're making your way out of Eva Beach and onto the freeway. It looks like Waikele is clear and that zipper lane already open all the way through. Eastside Drive is also looking light and dry, and your ways in from the windward side over the Like and the H3 are nice. Tom, to you.
All right, thanks, Tasia. Well, after the success of Surviving R. Kelly, Lifetime has decided to make another docuseries, this time about multimillionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein. The series will include interviews with women and girls who say Epstein sexually assaulted and abused them. Epstein was charged last week for operating a sex trafficking ring where he sexually abused dozens of underage girls. He pleaded not guilty. Lifetime is also working on Surviving R. Kelly: The Aftermath. It will feature interviews with those who claim to be new survivors. No premiere date set for either series just yet. And a new docuseries follows yet another man accused of sexual misconduct, plus the latest Tarantino film giving its stars an adrenaline rush during filming. Romina Puga has more on what it took to pull off all those stunts.
Me an actor?
No, I'm a stuntman.
Brad Pitt says it's been a long time since he had a thrill ride like the one he had filming Quentin Tarantino's new movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
When I started, I got to ride a full gallop down these oak trees in Oak Alley for Vampire. And it was a real thrill. And I haven't had that big of a thrill until getting to speed down Hollywood Boulevard dressed in 1969.
Tarantino closed a portion of Hollywood Boulevard and recreated it to look like the 60s. But Pitt's joyride wasn't without some close calls.
Except I did almost run over the stunt coordinator once, and I did hit a wall with the camera. It's tied onto the car.
Lifetime is ordering another R. Kelly docuseries after the singer was indicted on charges in Chicago and New York earlier this month. The network announced that Surviving R. Kelly: The Aftermath will have 4 parts and include interviews with new survivors and experts on the case. Lifetime will also produce Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, about the New York financier accused of trafficking and sex crimes with minors. And the nominees for the 2019 MTV Video Music Awards have been announced, and female musicians are taking the lead. Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift tied for most nominations with 10 apiece. Newcomer Billie Eilish has 9, and Lil Nas X trails close behind with 8. The award show will air on MTV on August 26th. And that's what's happening in Hollywood. I'm Romina Puga for ABC News in Los Angeles.
And as we mentioned, Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift dominating the nominations in this year's Video Music Awards, both garnering 10 nods, including Video of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Pop Video. Meanwhile, newcomers Billie Eilish and Lil Nas X also getting nominations for Video of the Year and Best New Artist. MTV introducing 2 new categories this year, Best K-Pop and Video for Good, which will honor videos that have positive messages. The VMAs will air on August 26th. Well, still ahead on Good Morning Hawaii, early edition, a rare tornado touching down in Cape Cod, of all places. We'll show you the dangerous winds and the damage that tore through the New England coast. We'll be right back.
I used to have to go in to the auto parts store. Pay too much, never find quite what I'm looking for. Now I just go online, rock auto and see all the parts my car will ever need. Lower prices, more parts, more brands. It's so easy to find the right parts fast. All the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto. All the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com.
You know, you don't need to wait on the sun to say good morning, Hawaii.
Lots of people are up before dawn, and we are too.
Join Good Morning Hawaii weekdays at 4:30 in the morning to get an early start on everything you need for your day.
My two favorite words? Help yourself. If you want it, go get it. Life is in the moments you dare to take. Unapologetic confidence starts with beautiful skin. Don't hesitate. First wax on us.
Catch Island Sports with Cody Krupp, weekends on KITV4.
We're at Ohana Hale Marketplace. We're actually Hawaii's largest indoor shopping experience here in Kaka'ako on Ward Avenue. We feature over 200 different vendors, locally owned and operated here, offering a unique experience for our shoppers. We have local products, food, services, very unique, something you won't find at your traditional mall. We have live music, especially events going on. So come check us out here at Ohana Hale Marketplace.
We are starting off to a nice, calm morning for this Wednesday. Time now at 4:54. There are reports of an accident, this in Kalihi at Middle Street, that have to do with an OTS bus. Again, on Middle Street, not exactly eastbound or westbound, but definitely expect some delays in the area. I'll continue to check on that and bring you the latest update. Coming in from the west side, clear conditions for today, but we do have some shoulder closures on the H1 eastbound direction from Waimalu off-ramp through Aiea Heights Drive 9 to 7 for today. No major accidents or stalls out on the roadways. Paliconcha flow expected to open up in 10 minutes. Now here's a look at your Wednesday forecast. Surf for the east, 3 to 5, 2 to 4 for the south. We still have that small craft advisory in place with wind speeds up to 25 knots from Maui throughout Hawaii Island. High tide just shy of 11 o'clock this morning. Our forecast for the next 24 hours showing that system pull off toward the northwest. High pressure system that will continue to give us a long stretch of trade winds into the weekend. Sunny and breezy. Temperatures will be pretty consistent, averaging with that daytime high up to 90. Today up to 92, especially for Kahului. Sunny conditions from Oahu throughout Hawaii Island. Partly cloudy conditions for Kauai County will continue. And even breezier later tonight, picking up just a bit. Sunset at 7:14. Tom, to you.
This is insane! All right, well, here's something that doesn't happen very often. A tornado touching down in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Don't hear that very often. Tornadoes are so rare there that of the 100,000 tornadoes that enter the United States every year, Massachusetts usually only gets one. The twister knocked out power to tens of thousands of residents. The National Weather Service gave the tornado a preliminary high-end EF1 rating with a maximum wind strength of 110 miles per hour. Wow. All right, well, time now, 4:56. We're working on some news stories for you in the next half hour. Coming up at 5, we're continuing to keep an eye on the Mueller testimony to Congress as that's happening live right there in Washington, D.C. And a brush fire on the Valley Isle burning dozens of acres. You won't want to miss this. The man arrested explains how he accidentally sparked the blaze. Plus, an 8-year-old boy takes a dangerous fall while hiking with his family at Manoa Falls. We'll show you the dramatic rescue. Good Morning Hawaii at 5 is coming your way right after the break. Stay with us.
Experience the bold, crispy, mouth-watering flavors Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen is serving up in each and every bite, providing closed captioning for KITV4 Island News.
Enter to win a trip for 2 to a pro football preseason game in San Francisco on August 10th. All you have to do is go to any Foodland location, find the Miller Lite